Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. How many of you have ever found yourself in a situation where your kindness, your willingness to be friendly, ended up costing you more than you intended to pay? Maybe you shared something personal with someone who later betrayed your trust. Perhaps you offered your time and energy freely, only to be taken advantage of. Or maybe you've simply felt drained by trying to be everything to everyone. How many times have you wished you had set clearer boundaries? Now I know what you might be thinking, but isn't friendliness a virtue? Of course, it is. The Bible tells us to love our neighbors, to be kind to one another, to show compassion and understanding. But I'm here to tell you today that there's a danger in being too friendly, and sometimes our greatest acts of kindness can leave us vulnerable. We may unintentionally open ourselves up to harm, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion if we are not careful about whom we let into our lives. Over-friendliness can cloud our discernment. When we're overly friendly with everyone, we risk giving ourselves away too easily, and we fail to recognize the importance of guarding our hearts. The truth is, not every relationship should be based on a foundation of friendship. You can be kind and loving to someone, but that doesn't mean you should be friend to everyone you meet. There are people in this world who will take advantage of your openness. There are situations that will drain your spirit. There are circumstances where being too friendly can lead to unnecessary battles you were never meant to fight. I want you to understand something profound today. Your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being is too important to be compromised by the wrong relationship. You have a calling, a purpose, and a destiny that requires focus. When we allow ourselves to become too friendly with the wrong people, we allow ourselves to be distracted. Our time and energy are depleted, and we lose sight of what matters most. The Bible clearly teaches us in Proverbs 4:23 to guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. This is not just about keeping harmful people out, but also about setting boundaries for ourselves. God has given us the responsibility to protect our hearts, to be discerning in our relationships, and to be mindful of how we invest our time and energy. Friendships that pull you away from your purpose or cause you emotional turmoil are not worth pursuing. And sometimes we need the courage to say, "No, I cannot give you that access to my life. I must protect the space in my heart for those who truly need it and will honor it." One of the greatest challenges we face today is balancing compassion with caution. We are called to love others, but loving someone doesn't mean we have to share everything with them or allow them into our lives without question. Jesus himself was a friend to sinners, but he also knew when to withdraw, when to set boundaries, and when to speak with wisdom. Even Jesus understood the power of selective relationships. Not everyone was allowed to walk beside him intimately. Not everyone was given the same level of access. And he didn't live his life trying to please everyone. He knew the importance of discerning who should be close and who should not. As we navigate our own lives, we must learn the art of setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are walls that protect what is precious. Boundaries guard our time, our energy, our emotions, and our relationship with God. The people we allow into our lives should be those who help build us up spiritually, not those who tear us down or leave us feeling empty. A wise person knows when to say enough and preserve what's sacred. You may be thinking, "I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to come off as cold or unkind." I understand that, but I want to remind you that setting boundaries is not about being unloving or harsh. It's about being wise. It's about recognizing that there's only so much of you to give. If you're giving everything to everyone, you'll have nothing left for yourself. And if you have nothing left for yourself, you won't have the strength to serve those who truly need you or to grow in your relationship with God. I'm here to tell you today that the power of selective friendships is immeasurable. When you learn to choose carefully, to discern wisely, You make space for deeper, more meaningful relationships that build you up. These relationships will encourage you to walk closer with God, to be the best version of yourself. They will support you in times of struggle and celebrate with you in times of joy. And most importantly, they will help you stay focused on your divine purpose. So let me urge you, stop being too friendly. Stop being overly available to everyone. You are precious. You are loved by God, and your heart is a treasure. Guard it. Set healthy boundaries. Choose your friends wisely. And remember, just because you can be friendly to someone doesn't mean you have to be their friend. Let's be wise in the relationships we nurture and let the Holy Spirit guide us in the process. Thank you, and may God bless you with the wisdom to guard your heart and the courage to choose the right relationships. Understanding the dangers of over-friendliness begins with recognizing that even good intentions, when misdirected, can lead to painful consequences. We often assume that being open, approachable, and accommodating to everyone is a mark of goodness, even godliness. But there is a fine line between kindness and compromise, and many fail to see it until it's too late. Over-friendliness is not just about being nice. It's about opening the doors of your heart, your time, and your emotional resources to people who may not value them, respect them, or deserve them. It is about giving away parts of yourself to individuals who haven't earned your trust or proven their character. And while you may think you're walking in love, in truth, you may be walking into a trap that drains your spirit, weakens your resolve, and distracts you from your purpose. Many people are wounded today not because they were evil, but because they were too available, too open, too giving. They shared their secrets with people who couldn't carry them. They invested in relationships that bore no fruit. They tried to fix others who never intended to change. And when the damage was done, they wondered what went wrong. The root of it all, more often than not, was over-friendliness. They did not test the spirit of those around them. They did not pause to ask, is this someone God sent or someone the enemy is using to delay me? Being overly friendly makes it hard to say no. It makes it difficult to confront wrong behavior. It clouds your discernment and makes you vulnerable to manipulation, flattery, and false loyalty. People will smile in your face, but not everyone smiling is sincere. Some are sent to spy, to sabotage, to distract, and to destroy. When you are too friendly, you often place yourself in the company of people who are not aligned with your values, your calling, or your destiny. You begin to compromise little by little, all in the name of peace or acceptance. But peace without wisdom is a trap, and acceptance without boundaries is a prison. God never called you to be everyone's friend. He called you to walk in wisdom. And that wisdom begins with acknowledging that over-friendliness is not just risky, it's dangerous. It opens the door to emotional entanglements, spiritual warfare, and internal conflict that could have been avoided with a little more discernment and a lot more self-respect. Discernment is one of the most critical spiritual tools a person can have, especially in a world that encourages superficial connection over meaningful relationship. When you lack discernment, you begin to let everyone in without questioning their intentions. You confuse charisma with character. You begin to trust easily, speak freely, and give away access to the most sacred parts of your life, your emotions, your vulnerabilities, your time. The Bible tells us in 1 John 4:1, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God." That means not everyone who enters your life has been sent by God. Some people are there to test you, to tempt you, or to trap you. Without discernment, you will mistake a distraction for a destiny connection. You'll think you've found a friend when in truth you've welcomed an enemy. Too often we are drawn to people who are charming, who speak well, who laugh with us and make us feel seen. But discernment goes deeper than surface-level interactions. It is the Spirit of God working within you, giving you the wisdom to see what your eyes can. It tells you who's real and who's fake. It lets you know when to speak and when to be silent, when to stay and when to walk away. People who lack discernment tend to be over-friendly because they confuse every open door with a divine invitation. But discernment teaches you that some doors are traps, and some smiles are masks. You cannot afford to be friendly with everyone because not everyone is harmless. Some people are on assignment to derail your purpose,
to drain your energy, or to sow seeds of doubt and division in your life. When you begin to operate in discernment, you will realize that being selective isn't being rude. It's being wise. It's not unchristian to protect your peace. It's not unloving to set boundaries. Jesus himself exercised discernment. He ministered to crowds, but he chose 12 to walk closely with him. And even among the 12 there were 3, Peter, James, and John, who were invited into deeper moments. Why? Because even Jesus knew that not everyone could handle intimacy. Not everyone deserved access, and neither does everyone in your life. You must ask God for discernment, so that you don't give away your heart to those who only intend to hurt it, or worse, destroy your faith from the inside out. Guarding your heart and mind is not merely a suggestion, it is a command from Scripture, a divine instruction that protects the core of who you are. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." That one verse holds a world of wisdom. Your heart is the wellspring of your life. It is where your emotions live, your desires form, your faith grows, and your decisions are made. When your heart is unguarded, you become exposed to influences that can infect your mind, your actions, and ultimately your destiny. Over-friendliness often leaves your heart wide open to people and ideas that don't belong there. And once the wrong people get in, they can leave scars that take years, sometimes decades, to heal. When you are too quick to open up, too eager to connect, you put your heart and mind at risk. The enemy doesn't always come roaring like a lion. Sometimes he whispers through a friend. He sneaks into your life wearing a smile, using comfort and charm to get close enough to poison your peace. That's why guarding your heart is essential. It's not about becoming hard or distant. It's about becoming wise. It's about recognizing that your heart is valuable, and not everyone deserves a seat at your emotional table. The same goes for your mind. What you allow into your thoughts will shape your beliefs, your words, and your future. Friendly conversations can turn into gossip. Encouraging advice can become toxic manipulation. Not everyone who sounds nice has pure intentions, and if your mind isn't guarded, you'll start to entertain things that weaken your faith and confuse your purpose. Many people walk around today carrying emotional baggage because they let someone into their heart too soon. They allowed someone to speak into their life without first testing their spirit, and now they struggle to trust, to heal, or to hope again. Why? Because they didn't guard what was sacred. Your heart and mind are spiritual battlegrounds. The enemy wants access because he knows that if he can pollute your emotions and disturb your thoughts, he can hinder your call. He doesn't always attack from the outside. He works through relationships, through over-familiarity, and through the words of those you thought were harmless. That's why over-friendliness is so dangerous. It lowers your defenses, weakens your discernment, and opens the gate for things that should have been kept out.
Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most vital forms of self-respect and spiritual discipline you can practice. Without boundaries, you will constantly feel exhausted, used, and misunderstood. Not because people are always wrong, but because you never drew the line where you should have. Boundaries are not walls built out of bitterness or fear. They are fences built out of wisdom and love. Love for yourself, for others, and for the purpose God has placed on your life. The truth is, you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you accept, and what you reinforce. And when you don't set boundaries, especially in friendships, you silently give others permission to invade spaces that should be protected. Some people will only respect you to the level you respect yourself. If you're always available, always saying yes, always pouring into others with no limit, there will be those who take your kindness for granted. They won't thank you. They won't consider your needs. They'll keep coming until you're drained and then move on to someone else. That's not friendship. That's dependency. And dependency without mutual respect becomes emotional bondage. When you fail to set boundaries, you start carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. You take on others' drama, pain, confusion, and expectations. And in doing so, you lose yourself. Jesus had boundaries. He withdrew to quiet places to pray. He didn't heal every person in every town he entered. He didn't allow every follower to become a disciple. Even among his own disciples, he had moments where he distanced himself. Why? Because Jesus understood that to fulfill his mission, he had to manage his energy, his focus, and his relationships wisely. And if the Son of God needed boundaries, how much more do we? You cannot be everything to everyone. You cannot fix everyone. You are not called to rescue people at the cost of your own peace. There is a time to help and a time to step back. There is a time to listen and a time to walk away. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. They will honor your space, appreciate your time, and understand your limitations. But those who get angry or distant when you finally say no were never respecting you in the first place. They were just benefiting from your lack of boundary. And if you never learn to say no, your yes will become meaningless. Not everyone deserves access to your life, and that's a truth many people learn only after they've been burned. You were not created to live wide open to every person who crosses your path. Your life, your time, your peace, and your purpose are sacred. And sacred things must be protected. Over-friendliness often opens the door to the wrong people. Individuals who come not to build but to break, not to bless, but to burden. It's easy to assume that just because someone is nice, just because they make you laugh or pay you a compliment, they belong in your inner circle. But life has a way of teaching us that some of the biggest smiles can hide the darkest intention. When you give everyone equal access, you eventually lose your sense of who truly values you. The ones who are meant to be close to you will show consistency, loyalty, and love, not just in the good times, but in the testing time. Access should never be granted based on how well someone flatters you, but on how well they align with your values and respect your boundaries. Over-friendliness is dangerous because it skips the test of time and character. It moves too quickly. It invites people into personal spaces before they've proven they can be trusted with them. And the more access you give to the wrong people, the more you expose your heart to unnecessary wounds. People are not always what they present themselves to. Some are opportunists who see your openness as an entry point to take what they can. They'll smile, speak sweet words, and appear harmless until they get what they want. Then they disappear or turn against you. When you look back, the signs were there. But you ignored them because you were too eager to be kind, too available, too friendly. God never intended for you to live without wisdom. That's why He gives discernment, not so you can be suspicious, but so you can be safe. There are levels of access for a reason. Even Jesus didn't give everyone the same level of intimacy. He had the crowd, the 70, the 12, and then the 3. That was not favoritism, it was wisdom. Protecting access doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you aware. You have a calling to fulfill, and you can't afford to let the wrong people into the rooms where your future is being formed. You must recognize that your heart, your mind, your peace, and your purpose are too precious to be shared with those who do not honor them. When you allow everyone to stay in your life, even when God has shown you clear signs to let them go, you begin to sabotage your own peace and delay your own growth. Not every relationship is meant to be permanent. Some people are in your life for a season, for a lesson, or even as a test. But the problem with over-friendliness is that it keeps expired relationships alive. It holds on to people who have already shown you who they are, hoping they will change, hoping they will suddenly appreciate you, respect you, or support you. But hope without boundaries becomes self-deception. And there comes a time when love must look like letting go. God will often give you signals, subtle but persistent, that someone no longer belongs in your inner circle. You'll feel unease around them. Their words will no longer align with your value. Their presence will disturb your spirit instead of giving you peace. But because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or because you feel obligated, or because you've known them a long time, you silence the voice of the Spirit and hold on anyway. And in doing so, you create space for confusion, frustration, and emotional heaviness. Holding on to the wrong people is not an act of love, it's an act of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of confrontation, fear of what might happen if you finally close the door.
But what you fail to release will eventually begin to rot. The friendship that used to bless you will start to drain you. Conversations that once gave life will turn into constant complaints, gossip, or manipulation. You will feel the tension in your soul, but over-friendliness will make you ignore it, excuse it, or justify it. That is not wisdom. That is bondage. And God does not bless what you're too afraid to surrender. There are people you're trying to carry into your next season who don't have the character, the faith, or the integrity to walk with you there. And as long as you keep them close, you are blocking the relationships that God wants to bring. People who will sharpen you, uplift you, and walk with you in truth and purpose. Sometimes love means distance. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say goodbye. When God says release, it is not rejection, it is redirection. And if you obey, He will fill that space with something greater. But if you refuse, that same space will become a source of spiritual warfare, confusion, and delay. You cannot afford to keep who God has told you to release. So now you see it. Being too friendly is not just a personality trait. It is a spiritual danger. The enemy doesn't always come with force. Sometimes he comes through a familiar face, a soft voice, or a seemingly harmless connection. Over-friendliness weakens your boundaries, dulls your discernment, opens your heart to the wrong people, and delays your destiny. And if you're not careful, you will spend your strength on those who were never meant to be in your life, and miss the voice of God telling you to come away, to be still, to be wise. God is calling you to a higher standard. He is calling you to protect your heart, to set firm boundaries, to exercise holy discernment, and to stop letting everyone have access to what is sacred. You were not created to be stretched thin trying to please people who don't value your purpose. You were not created to be emotionally drained, trying to maintain relationships that God has already ended. You were not created to walk through life exposed, exhausted, and confused, all because you were too afraid to say no. This is your moment to take back control, to pull your peace out of the hands of those who mishandled it, to remove your heart from the rooms where it was never meant to be, to look around your life and ask yourself, did God send this person, or did I let them in out of fear, guilt, or the need to be liked? It's time to walk in wisdom. It's time to be strong in spirit. It's time to stop being too friendly and start being fully obedient to the voice of the Lord. If you hear Him calling you to pull back, to set the boundary, to protect your purpose, listen. He sees what you can. He knows what they've said when you weren't in the room. He knows who's genuine and who's only there for what you give. Trust Him, obey Him, and walk forward knowing that your future is too important, your peace too costly, and your purpose too sacred to be handed over to just anyone. Let the wrong people go, and watch God send the right ones. That's the promise. That's the wisdom. That's the way forward.